Hi, hello. We are reading more Tokyo Ghoul a while ago now, like maybe 2 or even 3 weeks ago. I read a big chunk of the final volume, which is very long. I read like 7 or 8 chapters or something, and I was like, okay, if I release these one a day, surely by the time I release all these videos, I would have had a chance to read more. Haha, no such luck. My life has just been very busy lately, and when I do have free time, I'm kind of burnt out from all the stuff that I am doing, and I'm not really in the mood to make videos. I'm either just kind of too focused on what's coming up, or am I just like totally decompressing. So, unfortunately, that's why just fucking finish it July hit another snag. And but we've still got 3 more days before we spill into August, finish it. So yeah, let's read a little bit more today at least. I don't know if I'm gonna have the energy to get to the very, very end. It's already pretty late, but we're going to at least read a couple chapters and see how we feel about them. Crazy shit happening. Amon just killed Donato, his dad. His creepy, pederasty, child-killing, fake orphanage father-dad. There's like lots of kind of Catholic guilt themes we can explore here. When I was talking to my boyfriend, I think that's kind of one of the major themes of the character post-Ghoul revival for him is like the guilt he carries and the sense of like responsibility that he feels he has now that he has been given this kind of twisted, ironic second chance at life. And here we have this other clown who has shown up many times, is definitely kind of one of the major players in the organization, if you can even call it such a word. Referring to Donato, of course, as Crown, respecting him, saying we're going to back out. You get what you want. The second crown bestowed on me the clowns, and I committed many evil acts. Using my own incompetence as an excuse, I convinced myself it was the saga of a ghoul. I indulged myself in pleasure and cruelty. I sought meaning in blood and entrails. I even enjoyed killing the orphans. This is interesting, because this is like kind of another perspective than Uta, right? Like, Uta also kind of explains what it means for him to be a clown and what it motivates him to do and how that is in relation to kind of his overall nihilism. And here we have a similar kind of like resignation to, I suppose this is just the life of a ghoul. This being awash in violence. Sorry, I'm just gonna make sure I don't have to respond to this right away. All right, yeah, we're good. But here, it's sort of like, because I was convinced that this was like my fate as a ghoul, I indulged in it, and I began to find pleasure in it. And this kind of transition from resignation to the seeking of meaning to the arrival at pleasure is like kind of an interesting arc. It's not quite the same as Uda's, because Uda's was kind of much more of like an emptiness, like a void. He was obsessed with that feeling of cold void and an absence of warmth, whereas Donato arrived at some sort of like meaning just via pleasure. He was able to achieve this kind of fullness and violence and evilness. And he acknowledges here, as you know him, he is evil. I don't care how many humans become ghouls or how many lives are lost in this apocalyptic spectacle. People are smart. The city and its people will return with time. Tremendous energy available to recover from loss. Death and destruction are needed, like cultivating a field. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree that you can apply this to human society. But it's true, in like farming and forestry and things, you need burns. You need sometimes to destroy in order to rejuvenate the soil and to cultivate things better. It's actually very important for forest fires to occur with some period, because otherwise, like, there becomes like a stagnation in the quality of resources and stuff, and basically the overall like genetic diversity of the forest and its ability to sustain life just sort of drops off bit by bit by bit, which I find very compelling as sort of like world building that exists in real life. But whatever. I think this is like a very poetic and really interesting perspective, that Donato sees his role so impartially. He's not necessarily a fan of humans. He enjoyed killing and stuff, but really he just sees himself in part of a bigger picture. Sees himself as like a necessary force in that, in the end is still just one part of this picture. I don't know, it's like surprisingly humble, I guess, surprisingly like a nuanced perspective from someone who seemed a little egomaniacal. Just this line of like, I cannot be there for the harvest, but this destruction will have been meaningful, I think is like a very beautiful sentiment, you know? It's not really that different than the perspective of someone, that famous saying of, in a good society, old men plant trees that they know they will never get to sit under. You're setting things up for the future. You're having that sort of perspective of what's best for the world after I'm gone. Except that it's in such a twisted way that you're saying, well, what's best for the world once I'm gone is for me to have killed all those people. For me to have brought about this apocalyptic battle in which millions are going to die. To meet my fate at the hands of an executor of justice like you, it is truly a fitting end for me. It's perfect. And then here, it says the donuts. What does that mean? You made good donuts. This is just it. And this is something that maybe I failed to appreciate. When I was talking to my boyfriend about this, I really, like, this was like foreshadowed more than I remembered. And I really feel like even just beyond the explicit foreshadowing, beyond like the flashbacks of Aman thinking about his childhood and stuff, there's also like a very implicit character line here. Like just thinking about the character of Ammon, thinking about what he feels sentimental about, thinking about kind of like the burdens he bears in memory and stuff. Of course he would feel this way towards Donato. Of course he would have such a complex of this is the most evil man I've ever met, and yet he was a good father to me. I ate that dog's owners behind closed doors. Can you still say those are good memories? He's just fucking with him. He's just ahead, but he's fucking with him. I can. Yeah. This is like what he has to live with. No matter how hard I tried to forget it, no matter how hard I tried to hate you, I treasure the days I spent in that orphanage. I was an orphan, an abandoned child, and you raised me. And this is like such a beautifully painful ending to this character's arc. It's like anti-catharsis. Like he gets to alleviate himself of the duty he feels to kill Donato, right? Like that Catholic guilt quest that hung like a millstone around his neck. But in doing so, he's realized that there will be no catharsis, there will be no escape from the internal conflict of holding these precious memories, from the inherent like sheer force of emotions ripping in two different directions, of having fond memories of this heinous man. And that's just gonna be with him for the rest of his gosh darn life. And we are given no hope that maybe someday he'll just be all thumbs up about it. But at the same time, I guess it's not really saying that so doomerishly explicitly either. Like, well, I guess we should see the end of the scene, but I feel like, yeah, maybe I'm going too far into saying that's just going to be stuck with him forever and ever and ever, amen. Instead, it's more like this is now the gigantic mountain that he finds himself at the bottom of. and that in doing this, all he's done is opened up the path to take one step up that mountain of being okay with these conflicting feelings. But what's wrong with a son loving his father? The tears pouring down his face. Donato's still mocking him, unable to give him even like a crumb of comfort. Not that it would help all that much. Amon's still, having to reconcile that these fond memories are of the same man who is now just ahead, sitting there mocking him. Laughter rang out until his last breath. So I guess the one thing that maybe this whole situation somewhat, not necessarily like hinges on, but the final thing that can kind of like color this whole situation was Donato doing all of that out of just a sick and twisted manipulative desire of, I am going to trick these children so hard, they are going to love me so much, and then I am going to devour them? I think for sure, partially at least. But then was there also like a genuine feeling of Donato's warmth? Maybe harder to imagine. But here in this last page, well, the chapter's barely begun, but this last page of Donato, he's crying. Is he crying because he's laughing so hard at how hard he tricked Amon that all these years later he's still calling him his father? Or is he crying because in the end he also recognizes that there was like a bit of warmth there, that he was so in effect Amon's father that he can't even deny it? I don't know. There's a nice, heavy, tragic ambiguity there that I don't really expect to see resolved. Okay, meanwhile, big showdown with the owl. Meanwhile, again, Kaneki runs into Furuta. They didn't even know Kaneki was alive. I talked about this before, but I think it's just like the level of scheming that Furuta is on, where he's like the hugest mastermind in this whole series that has been orchestrating pretty much the last few major arcs, and B has not the foggiest what's like really going on with a lot of situations, and seems to not really value intel, and instead just sort of assumes everything is working the way he wants it to. It's very funny to me. A mere offering to the dragon is still alive. So the dragon is like the big centipede type thing. I'm not sure when they started calling it that, but it feels like everyone is calling it that now. And it's interesting that he calls Kaneki an offering to the dragon when Kaneki like turned into the dragon. Right? I don't know. You're not here to stop this thing, are you? Yes, he is. You seriously are, aren't you? Did you want to ask me something before you attack me? We've got a lot to talk about, don't we? Like, why and how? You like that sort of thing, don't you? That why fight kind of stuff. Oh, this is pretty good. So you can tell that Furuta has thought about this scenario before, and maybe was like a little bit disappointed when for a while he thought Kaneki was dead and he wouldn't get to have this showdown of ideology that he'd imagined. But even that he gets wrong, because for once in his life Kaneki doesn't want to hear why he fights. He doesn't want to hear Furuta's tragic childhood motivations or whatever. He's not bugging around. He just tries to kill Furuta instantly. Amazing. I'm not interested. And then Furuta says, "Why so serious?" The iconic Joker line from The Dark Knight. And Furuta, of course, besides being one of the de facto pseudo voices of power within the clowns, one of the few people that can like mobilize the clowns to do something, and in many other ways just sort of being this like Joker figure of unstable mastermind. So is it a coincidence that Furuta says, "Why so serious?" I don't know. Yeah, whatever. I'm not interested. Furuta ran. The history of the Washu family, he was planning to unravel his best jokes. All the words he had... Yeah! Oh, no. He really had planned the whole epic speech to Kaneki, the whole explanation from ground zero of his life story and why he's doing what he's doing and all this BS that doesn't matter. A little soliloquy by Furita. Unfortunate. I wanted to hear about the history of the Washu family and stuff. This feels like almost a little bit of a abrasive joke by the mangaka, being like, oh, you wanted like a complete story of the Washu family and how they came to power and how they came up with this idea of, we'll be the ones in charge of the counter ghoul organization and subvert it from the inside and maintain our power, and we're going to start this weirdo garden and train a whole bunch of freakazoids. I wanted to hear all that. That sounds like a nice, healthy little flashback to explicitly connect all those dots and make sure I'm on the right page and could have some really cool characters involved and everything. But no, we don't have time. We don't have time. So instead we just get to learn that Furuta was all hyped up to tell Kaneki about it and then just doesn't get to. You sure are the king. Perhaps it's not kingly to chase an insect around like me. and then this bottom, the way he's crying out, this has to be intentional. The most iconic panel from this entire series is Kaneki crying out with almost the exact same, I think, like portrait and mouth width. I don't know. It's maybe not the exact same. Maybe it's not as evocative of it as I remember, but I suddenly saw that and it felt like Furuta is like parodying that. Wow. Whoa. Okay. What? Oh no. Kaneki suddenly wrecked by gigantic tendrils of maybe the dragon. No, okay, Furuta fucking with him. You're still an idiot. Assistant Special Investigator. Kaneki never got to be Special Investigator. Poor guy. He had a whole double life in the Counter Ghoul organization. He couldn't get there. Unfortunate. Coming down here all by yourself, thinking you're a hero. Try to force things as always. You're a thug. When are you gonna learn? Didn't think I'd let you kill me that easily, did you? Honestly, I got tricked. I thought this could easily be Kaneki just kills Furuta super anticlimactically. I thought, yeah, that's like fitting for his character. And then realizes like, oh, that didn't really solve anything. Like, I still have to figure out how to stop the dragon, and I'm still gonna fight Rize. Rize is lurking down there. Maybe Rize is responsible for this counterattack right now. I don't know. So I got tricked. I thought, okay, this makes sense as like another twist. Furuta just dies. Let me tell you something. I'm actually pretty strong. We've seen this before. Furuta can actually fight. There was the whole showdown in the Washu office, where maybe the only time he ever got like serious, and even then we don't really know if he was getting serious, but he was definitely trying to accomplish something with strength. Okay, we got a fight in our hands. So we've wrapped up Donato and Uta. So now the owl is no longer being puppeteered, but it's still there and it's still like rampaging. So I don't know if this just kind of allows them to actually make some headway on it, but we've got, most of our special investigators and the queues and stuff are down there. So that's like one big battle. And then of course now we have Furuta versus Kaneki, and then we have Ayano versus all the like kind of ghoul zombie bioweapon type things. And I think that's about it. I think those are like our three main fronts. And then, of course, Rize is still lurking around there somewhere. Okay, so we're really proceeding into the end game. I don't know. I hope it's not fighting all the way up until the end. I hope there's a very cathartic, satisfying, sentimental finale of just kind of like checking in with our characters and maybe seeing their baby or something. I don't know, assuming it's a good ending, like a happy ending, that is. I think no matter what, it's going to be a good ending, and I'm excited to see it. So let's keep going. See you in the next